Welcome back to the Engineered Angler. Over the course of quite a few videos, I've introduced you guys to not only my lure turner, but my method of holding lures while they're being turned and while I'm finishing them. Everything from my telescoping lure holder that will hold almost any lure to my most recent one, which is my lure bow. This is a design I came up with years and years ago, but it's really unique because you can change the length and it self-tensions. And I had a lot of requests to go ahead and show you how I make these. And I'm going to go ahead and put links to those older videos in the description below. So if you want to see how I actually made these, you can. But lately you may have seen me using this kind of holder. A hemostat with a little piece of tube fitted to one of the little finger rings. And this is turning out to be really handy as I make smaller and oddly shaped lures, or lures like this one where the tie-on eye and the hook eyes are in such sort of weird locations that it doesn't work well for any of my other holders. So in this video I'm going to show you how to make this simple little tool, and you can use it anywhere you have a place to insert the little PVC tube. So stick around. So I've already made 3 of these for myself, but typically I'll turn a set of 5 lures at a time. So I need to make 2 more anyway, so I thought this is a good opportunity to show you exactly how I make these. So we start off with just a simple hemostat, and this is a 5-inch hemostat with the curved tip. It doesn't have to have the curved tip, but I find if you're going to buy these hemostats, you can buy them cheap in bulk, 10 or so at a time, and the ones that you don't convert into the lure holder with the little tube connector, you can use more readily if it's got a little bit of a curved tip. So the first thing I do to modify this is to cut off almost all that curved tip, leaving a very short jaw. And the reason you want to leave a little short jaw is to give yourself leverage. The shorter that jaw, the more leverage and the harder this thing will bite down on whatever it is you're trying to hold on to. So I'm going to cut off all but about 4 millimeters of this jaw. And I'm measuring right from the very peak of that hinge point and going about 4 millimeters, or about 3/16 up. You might think that cutting the stainless steel is a little daunting, but really isn't very hard at all. But this part I'm going to cut with a hacksaw. There's half. Alright, here's what it looks like after getting a little bit of filing. And it doesn't have any burrs or anything that could damage something. And you end up with some nice little, very tough little jaws. Alright, so we're ready to move on. So I want to show you first how I installed the little tube. First of all, you got to keep in mind that this tube cannot rotate or rock in any direction. Otherwise, your lure will be wobbling around in your turner. So it has to be really firmly connected, and just the glue won't do it. So if you take a look here at the very base, there's a slot, so it slides into this part of the bottom of the hemostat, and then up here there's a hole where the remainder of the little hemostat loop pokes through. It really turns into a really rock solid installation. So let's go ahead and do the first step, which is to cut a piece of the CPVC. This is 1/2 inch CPVC, and I need 1 inch and 3/8 of it. And I can get a nice square cut if I use my jaws as a guide. And before I forget, stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to announce who the winner is of the lure giveaway from last week's video. If you'll remember, I asked you guys to guess the weight of a little bass I caught on the last video. So I'll announce the actual weight and the winner at the very end. All right, with that cut, I can now take this and put a little tiny slot, and I'm just going to use the Dremel tool with a little grinding disc on it. And that goes down about 3/16 of an inch, and about 1/8 of an inch wide will do it just fine. And that should fit the metal of that part of the hemostat real easily. Alright, next step is to cut the finger loop. And the key to knowing how much to cut off is using the dimensions of your tube. So for this first cut on the very bottom of the loop, you want to have it the inside diameter of your tube, which is 7/16. But I wouldn't worry too much about getting perfect accuracy on the first cut, because you can always grind it back a little bit, either with a file or a little disc. So I'm going to cut it just a little big, probably a 1/16 over what I need. Now on the upper part of the finger loop, you've got to cut it long enough so it protrudes through the far side of the wall of this tube, so you got to add an extra 1/16. And the trick to that measurement is that you have to measure straight up from this part of the finger loop. And so I'm going to cut right at 9/16 and kind of eyeball it over. And again, if I cut it a little long, I can always grind it back. I'll get it started with the Dremel tool and finish up with the hacksaw. Now, the bottom portion. So I'm filing down these two surfaces nice and flush, so they're both sort of parallel to each other. And I'm taking off the sharp edges and the burrs. All right, so that's pretty good. The next step is to drill a hole for this thing to come through the tube at the top. So to find out where to put that hole, you have to kind of turn this way, where the slot, instead of going on the inside, you put it on the outside and you straddle that bottom part of the loop. And then you can look down inside there and see where that little leg hits, which actually with this little mechanical pencil, I can just extend the lead out to where it is. And then I can mark the location using that lead. And I know that the hole has to be down here. So if you remember, I left a little extra on this leg, and this is the leg that goes up inside the tube and doesn't poke out. So I need to take that off. I left a little too much, so I'm going to hacksaw that off. Alright, so after some grinding and cutting and grinding some more, I've got this. So these are nice and parallel, and I think I can get them installed now. This should be a little bit stiff so it barely gets in there and then gets in the slot. The upper end one in the hole so it won't rotate. And at that point, you're ready for the next step, which is just putting glue on. Alright, now I'm going to just stick a piece of tape here so the glue doesn't just run out. And you can do this with resin, or casting resin works really well for this kind of thing, but I'm just going to use hot glue. It works perfect. And the idea is to keep it flowing so it sags all the way to the bottom. Alright, that should do it. Alright, so after it cools, you can just take a little sandpaper to the outer edge so it'll fit in the little PVC fitting or CPVC fitting. And if there's excess glue, you can always just cut it off with a razor blade. The only other tip is that that little part of the finger loop that goes through the PVC shouldn't go all the way through, or shouldn't extend way out. It should be flush or just inside of that hole. This way it doesn't get in the way of putting it in the fitting. Alright, so now we've finished our little lure holder. Now I can just clip it on to whatever lure I feel I need to hold with this. And typically I'll use it for small lures and oddball lures. But this is the lure I'm giving away in the Guess the Weight of the Fish giveaway. So the actual weight of that fish was 0 pounds, 10 ounces, 0.25. most everyone guessed well over that. And I would have too, actually. For some reason, anything under 2 pounds, I really can't guess. And anything over 6 pounds just looks like 10 pounds to me. So the winning guess was 9.75 ounces, which is a half an ounce away. So that's pretty doggone good. And the winner was John Rawls. So John, I'll go ahead and put a reply comment in your original comment with your guess in it. And you can just email me at engineeredangler, all one word, at gmail.com. All right, so I hope you found this little build useful. I really enjoy fabricating little specialty tools to help me with my hobby. And I really enjoy sharing my ideas with you guys. So as usual, thank you to everyone who commented, everyone who guessed on the weight, and everybody who's offered me ideas for future videos. And I'll see you guys on the next one.